Welcome to Lotus Light Teachings, a space where wisdom meets transformation. If you're looking for ways to cultivate a sharper mind, a more peaceful heart, and a life of clarity and purpose, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into 6 profound yet simple Buddhist habits that can keep your mind sharp as you age. Aging is often associated with memory decline, foggy thinking, and a loss of mental agility. But what if that's not inevitable? What if there were timeless practices, rooted in Buddhist wisdom and backed by modern neuroscience, that could help you maintain clarity, focus, and vibrancy? No matter your age, stay with us because in this video we'll explore these 6 transformative habits. Practices that monks have followed for centuries and that science now confirms can rewire your brain, improve memory, and bring deep mental clarity. And by the end, you'll have actionable steps to take back control of your cognitive health and live each day with awareness, purpose, and gratitude. Now let's begin. Imagine this. You walk into a room and pause. Why did you come in here again? You struggle to remember a name that was once on the tip of your tongue. Your keys. Where did you put them this time? Moments like these might seem small at first, but over time they build up, leading to frustration, even fear. Is this just normal aging, or is it something more? What if I told you that your mind is not a victim of time, but a reflection of your habits? That just as the body needs movement to stay strong, the mind needs daily practices to stay sharp? Science and Buddhism both tell us mental clarity is something we cultivate. Like a garden, it flourishes when nurtured, or withers when neglected. And today, I want to share 6 habits that not only protect your mind, but awaken it to its fullest potential. You'll hear stories, practical techniques, and a fresh perspective on how you can keep your mind as vibrant as ever, no matter your age. Are you ready? Let's explore the first habit. Habit 1. Walking barefoot, reconnecting with the earth. There's something about touching the earth with your bare skin that feels like coming home. Not the home of walls and a roof, but the home of something deeper, something primal, something true. It's easy to forget, in the modern world of concrete jungles and synthetic soils, that we are meant to be connected to the ground beneath us. Margaret had spent her whole life in shoes. A businesswoman, always on the move, always rushing from one meeting to the next. She rarely had a moment to stop and feel anything beneath her feet other than expensive heels or stiff sneakers. It wasn't until her 60s, after a health scare, that she even considered the idea of slowing down. A close friend suggested she try something simple: walk barefoot in her garden every morning. It sounded ridiculous. What difference could that possibly make? But one morning, with the sun barely rising and the world still in its quiet, untouched state, she stepped outside. The dewy grass was colder than she expected, and a slight shiver ran through her body. It was uncomfortable at first. Her feet, so used to the barriers of rubber and leather, flinched at the sensation of damp earth. But something in her told her to stay. She took a deep breath. The crisp morning air filled her lungs. A bird called somewhere in the distance. And in that moment, something shifted. Margaret didn't realize it then, but science would have explained it. Studies show that when our skin makes direct contact with the earth, negative electrons from the ground help neutralize free radicals in the body. Grounding, or earthing as some call it, has been linked to reduced inflammation, lower stress levels, and even improved sleep. But in that instant, Margaret wasn't thinking about science. She was simply feeling something she hadn't felt in years: presence. She continued this practice every morning. Soon, she wasn't just stepping onto the grass. She was walking, slowly, deliberately. She noticed the way the soil changed beneath her toes, the softness of the earth after rain, the warmth of sun-baked ground in the afternoons. She noticed the small things she had rushed past for decades. The way the wind carried the scent of jasmine in the spring, the way the sky turned a soft watercolor pink before dawn. Her mind, once crowded with to-do lists and deadlines, started to quiet. It wasn't just about her feet. It was about waking up. To the world, to herself. This simple act, walking barefoot, might seem insignificant, but the most profound changes often come from the smallest shifts. Think about it. When was the last time you stood still, truly still, and let the earth support you? When was the last time you felt the raw texture of nature beneath your skin without a layer of something man-made between you and the ground? Steve Jobs, a man known for his relentless pursuit of innovation, often walked barefoot around his home and even in his office. Some say it was eccentricity. Others say it was his way of reconnecting with something deeper. And perhaps he understood something we often forget. That clarity, creativity, and balance don't come from the noise of the world, but from the silence of being truly present. Margaret, after years of being lost in the chaos of productivity, found herself again through something as simple as touching the ground. She started spending more time in nature, not just walking but sitting, breathing, listening. She discovered that peace wasn't something you had to chase. It was something you could find right where you stood, if only you took the time to feel it. And that's the thing about habits. They don't have to be grand or complicated. Sometimes the smallest shift in routine, a few moments each day spent with your bare feet on the earth, can have a ripple effect that transforms everything else. So here's a thought, try it. Step outside, take off your shoes, and let your feet meet the earth. Feel the world beneath you. Let it remind you that you are here, that you are alive, that there is something beautiful in simply being connected. What if the clarity you've been searching for has been right beneath you all along? Habit 2. The golden tonic, nourishing your mind through food. Margaret had never thought much about food beyond its taste. She had lived most of her life on autopilot, grabbing coffee in the morning, skipping meals when she was busy, indulging in quick takeout on nights when she was too exhausted to cook. It wasn't that she didn't care about health. She just never really connected what she ate with how she felt. That changed the day she forgot her granddaughter's name. It was a small moment, barely a flicker in time, but for Margaret, it was like standing on the edge of a vast and terrifying void. She had seen it happen to others, friends, neighbors, even her own mother, losing pieces of themselves, one memory at a time, until all that remained was a distant shell of who they used to be. She refused to let that happen. Her doctor, a kind woman with an old soul and sharp intuition, didn't prescribe her medication. Instead, she handed Margaret a small, steaming cup filled with a golden-hued liquid. "Try this," she said. "It's an ancient remedy, a golden tonic." Margaret took a sip, and warmth spread through her body. It was earthy, slightly spicy, comforting in a way she couldn't explain. She raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "How is this supposed to help my memory?" The doctor smiled. "Because food isn't just fuel. It's information. It tells your body and brain how to function. What you eat shapes how you think, how you feel, how you remember." That was the moment Margaret began to see food differently. Not as something to satisfy hunger, but as something that could heal her. She learned about turmeric first, this golden root that had been revered in Eastern medicine for thousands of years. It wasn't just a spice. It was a shield, guarding the brain against inflammation, protecting memory like an ancient warrior standing at the gates. Modern science had finally caught up, confirming what Buddhist monks had known for centuries. Turmeric strengthens the mind. Then there was coconut oil, a source of instant energy for brain cells. In an age when people feared fats, Margaret discovered that not all fats were the enemy. In fact, some, like those in coconut oil, were like fuel for the mind, feeding neurons and keeping them firing long into old age. Black pepper, a strange ingredient, she thought, but one that held a secret power. It activated the turmeric, increasing its absorption by 2000%. Without it, turmeric was like a locked door. Black pepper was the key. Cinnamon and cacao were the final pieces of the puzzle. More than just flavors, they were natural circulatory enhancers, keeping blood flowing to the brain, keeping thoughts alive and sharp. Margaret didn't change overnight. At first, she simply drank the golden tonic each morning, just as her doctor suggested. But something unexpected happened. She slowed down. Instead of rushing through her morning coffee, she found herself savoring the warmth of this new ritual. She would sit by the window, hands wrapped around the cup, watching the world wake up around her. She noticed how the light shifted through the trees, how the birds greeted the morning with unhurried songs. It wasn't just a drink. It was a moment of mindfulness. And then came the changes, small but undeniable. The fog in her mind that she had come to accept as part of aging began to lift. She could focus longer. She remembered details more easily. One afternoon, she called her granddaughter by name without hesitation, and in that quiet moment, she felt a deep sense of victory. This was more than just a coincidence. The food she was putting into her body was transforming her. Margaret began to wonder, how often do we feed our minds junk and expect them to function at their best? We wouldn't pour spoiled gasoline into a car and expect it to run smoothly. Yet we do this to our bodies every day. Processed foods, artificial sugars, empty calories with no nourishment. She thought of the Buddhist monks she had once seen on a trip to Thailand, sipping their turmeric-infused teas before long hours of meditation. They had understood something that modern society seemed to forget. A nourished mind is a focused mind. And so Margaret began to experiment. She filled her kitchen with real food, bright, vibrant vegetables, healing spices, fresh herbs. She started cooking with intention, treating each meal not as a task, but as an offering to her body, to her mind. She wasn't just eating anymore. She was nourishing herself. It wasn't long before her friends noticed the change. "You seem different," they would say. "More alive." Margaret would smile and pour them a cup of her golden tonic. She wasn't the only one who had found clarity in the simplest of things. Take Steve Jobs, for example. A man known for his relentless innovation, he was also known for his meticulous attention to what he put into his body. He believed that food shaped the way we think, that a clean, mindful diet fueled creativity and focus. Or Albert Einstein, who once said, "Nothing will benefit human health and increase chances for survival of life on Earth as much as the evolution to a vegetarian diet." He understood that food was more than just sustenance. It was a choice, a statement, a way of shaping not only our bodies but our minds. Margaret wasn't trying to change the world. She was just trying to stay present in it. But in doing so, she stumbled upon a truth that had been hidden in plain sight. Everything we consume, physically or mentally, becomes a part of us. What if we approached food with the same reverence that we approach learning? What if we treated meals like rituals rather than routines? What if, instead of reaching for what was easy, we reached for what was healing? Margaret didn't have all the answers, but every morning, as she lifted her golden tonic to her lips, she knew one thing. She was choosing clarity, and sometimes that's enough. So here's a question for you. What are you feeding your mind today? Habit 3: Music, the soundtrack of memory. Margaret had never thought much about music in her daily life. It was always there, playing softly in the background at the grocery store, humming through the radio on long drives, drifting through the walls from a neighbor's party. But it had been years, maybe decades, since she had truly listened. That changed the afternoon her granddaughter, Emily, sat beside her on the porch and asked, "Grandma, when was the last time you listened to your favorite song?" Margaret paused, caught off guard by the simplicity of the question. Favorite song? Did she even have one anymore? She used to. She used to sing in the car, hum while she cooked, dance barefoot in the living room when no one was watching. But somewhere between raising a family, losing loved ones, and growing older, music had faded into the background of her life. That night, she found herself sitting alone in the quiet of her home, scrolling through an old playlist on her phone. And then she saw it, Unchained Melody, the song that had played on the night of her first dance with her late husband, Tom. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the play button. What if it hurt too much? But she pressed it anyway. The first notes drifted through the air, soft and familiar. And suddenly, she was 22 again. The smell of Tom's cologne, the warmth of his hands on her waist, the way they swayed together under the dim lights of a dance hall. All of it came rushing back. She closed her eyes. The years melted away. It wasn't just a memory. It was a feeling. Buddhist philosophy teaches that sound is a powerful gateway to the mind. From mantras to chants, monks have long used rhythmic tones to center themselves, to heal, to recall wisdom passed down through generations. Modern neuroscience now confirms what ancient wisdom has known for centuries. Music isn't just entertainment. It's medicine. Studies have shown that music can reawaken parts of the brain that seem lost, especially in people suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. Even when words fade, melodies remain. A familiar tune can spark recognition, emotions, and even movement in those who have been unresponsive for years. Margaret didn't need a scientific study to tell her what she already knew in her bones. The next morning, she told Emily about her experience. The way the song had transported her, the way it had made her feel alive again. Emily smiled and pulled out her phone. "Let's make a playlist together," she said. "One song for every big moment in your life." Margaret laughed, but as they started adding songs, something magical happened. There was "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," the song her mother used to sing while tucking her into bed. "Can't Help Falling in Love," which had played on the night Tom proposed. "Here Comes the Sun," the song that had been playing on the radio the day she brought her daughter home from the hospital. Each song was a doorway to a memory, a life she had once lived but had almost forgotten. She realized in that moment that music wasn't just about the past. It was about connection, to moments, to emotions, to the people we love. She started playing music more often, in the mornings as she made tea, in the evenings as she read on the porch. She even started humming again, something she hadn't done in years. One evening, Emily visited and found her grandmother in the kitchen, swaying softly to an old jazz tune. "You know," Margaret said, smiling, "I think I forgot how much I love to dance." Emily grinned and extended a hand. "Then let's dance." And they did. In that moment, it didn't matter how many years had passed. Margaret felt young, free, alive. That's the power of music. It doesn't just help us remember. It reminds us who we are. So here's something to try. Play a song from your past. One that meant something to you. Close your eyes. Let it wash over you. What does it bring back? More importantly, how does it make you feel? Habit 4, movement, awakening the body to awaken the mind. Margaret had always considered movement a necessity rather than a joy. It was something you did to get from one place to another, not something to be savored. In her younger years, she had moved with ease, rushing through busy streets, balancing groceries in one arm while holding her child's hand in the other. But as she grew older, movement became something she avoided. It was easier to sit, easier to rest, easier to let the world pass by while she remained still. That's why, when her granddaughter Emily invited her for a walk one crisp autumn afternoon, she hesitated. "I'm too tired," she said, rubbing her knees, already aching from years of neglect. But Emily was persistent, and there was something about her youthful energy, so full of light and possibility, that made Margaret reconsider. She laced up her sneakers and stepped outside. The first few minutes were uncomfortable. The air was brisk, the sidewalk uneven. Her legs felt heavy, her breath short. Every step reminded her of how long it had been since she had last truly moved. She wanted to turn around. But then, something unexpected happened. Emily began to talk. She spoke about school, about dreams of traveling, about the small joys she found in her everyday life. Margaret listened, and in listening, she forgot about the discomfort. She forgot about the ache in her joints, the slowness of her steps. She simply walked, side by side with her granddaughter, feeling the rhythm of her own movement return. The next day, she walked again, and the day after that. Slowly, something began to shift. Her steps became steadier, her breath easier, the world more alive. She noticed the way the morning light filtered through the trees, the scent of fresh rain lingering in the air, the laughter of children playing in the distance. Movement, she realized, wasn't just about exercise. It was about connection. To the world, to herself, to the life she had been quietly letting slip away. Science supports what Margaret learned through experience. Studies show that regular movement boosts neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections. Just 30 minutes a day. A short walk, some gentle stretching, a bit of yoga can improve memory, sharpen focus, and even slow cognitive decline. The body and mind are not separate. They are deeply intertwined. And when you move the body, you awaken the mind. Margaret found herself feeling more energized, more present. Conversations became easier, memories sharper. She started recalling names and details she had once struggled to remember. It was as if her mind had been waiting for her body to wake up so it could follow. One afternoon, as she walked through the park, she saw an elderly man sitting on a bench, watching the world move around him. He looked how she had once felt. Tired, distant, disconnected. She smiled and sat beside him. "Come walk with me," she said. "Just a few steps." He hesitated, just as she had. But then he stood. And together they walked. "So, when was the last time you moved? Not out of necessity, but out of joy? Out of curiosity? Out of the simple, quiet pleasure of being alive? Maybe today is the day to take that first step. Not for exercise. Not for obligation. But for yourself." Habit 5. Mental challenges, training the brain like a muscle. Margaret had always been an avid learner when she was younger. Books lined the shelves of her home, pages filled with stories and knowledge she once devoured eagerly. But as the years passed, she found herself reading less, thinking less, allowing the world to become predictable. It wasn't that she had lost curiosity. It was that she had fallen into a routine where curiosity no longer felt necessary. One afternoon, her son handed her a book of crossword puzzles. "Try these, Mom. Keep your mind sharp," he said with a smile. She looked at the book with skepticism. It had been years since she had done a crossword. She flipped through the pages, staring at the empty boxes and obscure clues. The first few attempts were frustrating. Her mind felt sluggish, her recall slow. Words that once came effortlessly now danced just out of reach. "Why is this so hard?" she muttered. But something in her refused to give up. She sat down with her morning tea and tackled a few clues every day. Slowly, the words started coming back. The connections, once lost in the cobwebs of time, began to spark again. It wasn't just crosswords. Inspired by the small victories, she started challenging herself in other ways. She picked up books on subjects she had never explored before. Astronomy, classical music, the philosophy of the Stoics. She downloaded an app to learn French, stumbling through the unfamiliar words like a child learning to speak for the first time. And then, one evening, while talking to an old friend, she effortlessly recalled a name she hadn't thought of in decades. A small, almost imperceptible moment. But to Margaret, it was proof. Proof that her brain was not fading. It was waking up. Science supports what Margaret discovered on her own. Neuroscientists have found that mental stimulation encourages neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form and reorganize connections. Just like muscles, the brain grows stronger when it is challenged. Crosswords, Sudoku, learning a new language, playing an instrument. All of these create new neural pathways, making the mind more resilient. Think of someone like Leonardo da Vinci. A painter, an inventor, a scientist. His brilliance didn't come from a singular talent, but from his relentless curiosity. He trained his brain by constantly learning, questioning, experimenting. Or consider Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in the world, who spends 80% of his day reading and thinking. An exercise in mental discipline. Margaret didn't become a genius overnight, but she became sharper, more engaged, more alive. She started playing chess with her granddaughter, laughing at her own mistakes but loving the challenge. She found joy in small victories. Solving a particularly tough puzzle, learning a new French phrase, recalling an old memory with clarity. And most importantly, she no longer feared cognitive decline. She knew she had the power to fight against it. So, when was the last time you gave your brain a challenge? When did you last learn something new, something unfamiliar? Maybe today is the day to pick up a new book, try a new game, explore a new language. Because the truth is, your mind is waiting for you to use it. And the more you do, the stronger it becomes. Habit 6. Gratitude and faith, the ultimate mindset shift. Margaret's most profound transformation came when she embraced gratitude. At first, it was something she did out of routine. Every night, before closing her eyes, she whispered to herself, "Thank you for today. I am here. I am grateful." It felt small, almost insignificant. But something within her knew that even the smallest rituals could lead to profound changes. It wasn't an immediate shift. The first few weeks felt like going through the motions. But then, little by little, her perspective started changing. Instead of dwelling on what she had lost, her youth, her sharp memory, the people who were no longer by her side, she found herself focusing on what she still had. A warm home, the laughter of her granddaughter, the way the sunlight filtered through the trees in the morning. Gratitude became her anchor. On days when fear crept in, when she forgot a name or misplaced her keys, she didn't spiral into panic. Instead, she took a deep breath and reminded herself, "I am still here. I still have today." That thought alone brought her back to peace. Science validates what Margaret experienced firsthand. Studies show that gratitude physically rewires the brain, strengthening neural pathways linked to resilience and positivity. Monks have long understood this. Their days are filled with prayers and meditations rooted in thankfulness, practices that cultivate a mindset of peace, acceptance, and clarity. One morning, Margaret sat on her porch sipping tea, watching the world wake up around her. She thought about all the years she had spent fearing aging, worrying about the inevitable changes of time. But now she saw things differently. Aging wasn't about decline. It was about choice. The choice to nourish her mind, to move her body, to challenge herself, and, most importantly, to embrace gratitude. She realized that the most powerful shift wasn't in her memory, her habits, or even her health. It was in her mindset. The moment she stopped fearing what she might lose and started appreciating what she had, life became brighter, simpler, lighter. Margaret's journey is proof that transformation doesn't come from resisting change, but from leaning into it with grace and gratitude. So, here's a question. What if the peace you're searching for isn't something you need to find, but something you need to recognize? What if it's already here, waiting for you to notice it? As we reach the end of our journey together, take a moment to reflect. Which of these 6 habits spoke to you the most? Was it the grounding practice of walking barefoot on the earth? The power of mindful eating? The way music can unlock forgotten memories? Or perhaps it was the reminder that movement isn't just for the body, but for the mind as well? Whatever it may be, remember this. You have the power to shape your mind. Aging is not about decline. It is about evolution. Every small choice you make today can ripple into a sharper, clearer, and more present version of you tomorrow. So, what's one habit you will commit to starting today? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this video brought value to you, please like, share, and subscribe to help spread this wisdom to more people on their journey to clarity and mindfulness. Together, let's continue cultivating a life of awareness, gratitude, and mental vitality. Until next time, stay present, stay grateful, and keep your mind sharp. Thank you for watching Lotus Light Teachings.